back again. This is another session of so exciting. Looking for work. I know the process is somewhat of a drag and can be tedious, but I am excited to be here and to be able to share with you all my innermost thoughts as you pose questions about the process to get a job as a entry-level software engineer or something in that space. That's mainly my area of expertise, but there could be some things that are still applicable to other folks. So the way this works is if you are following along on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch, and we're even on Periscope. I don't even know if that's still a thing, but we're simulcasting so that we can reach as many folks and help as many people as possible. And to that end, if you just post your questions in the comment box, they will just get shot over to me. I'll just one at a time rip through them and try and get to the point where at least you know the plan, right? Then it's really about putting the effort in, making things happen. So usually start things off by talking a little bit about key takeaways, things that I'm thinking about, things that I think might be constructive for folks that are looking for work. But I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to solicit some help. So for those that are getting this on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn peeps out there especially, because they tend to be the most on it and active and supportive, I will request from you that you check out my blog posts or check out my LinkedIn posts, and please help me share and amplify the message about mentorship. So this week, I want to touch on mentorship. I want to provide people that think that they're in a spot where they're maybe looking to move up within a tech organization, an opportunity to develop some new skills, acquire maybe some additional cultural competency, some leadership skills, and that is to take advantage of the opportunity to mentor other developers. I think there's nothing that can provide you a better opportunity to distinguish yourself from other people inside of your shop. If let's say you're a new senior engineer and you're working your way through, you've been in a position where you've been mid-level and you've been junior, and so you're really close to what it takes to empathize with folks and be able to add value to people that were just, maybe a few years earlier than where you are in your career path. And I think that's invaluable to be able to get some hands-on experience, sharing and being aware of what's going on with, making an impact for somebody else, bringing some value for somebody else. And the better you can become at that skill of really identifying what adds value for somebody else, the better you'll be at networking, the better you'll be at leadership, the better you'll be able to be more self-aware and understand where are the areas that you need to get better. So at the top, I just want to kind of say a big shout out to those folks that we've had a tremendous outpouring support already. I've lined up some fantastic folks that will be coaching the mentors. And that's the other piece. I want to provide a ton of value. So this is an opportunity really for people that are like early career senior engineers or mid-level engineers that are looking to grow some skill. Jump in there, become a mentor. It'll be a great opportunity for you. And right now there's no cost. It's a program where we're providing the training, we're providing the opportunity to mentor more early career developers and really establish some of those skills that you only get to practice by actually, working with other humans. This isn't something you're going to read in a book. This is like an MBA in being a great software engineering leader, right? Is being able to mentor folks. So opportunities out there. It's you can also reach us at sdcs.io/mentor. Great place for you to connect. And again, whether you're looking to be a coach of mentors or you're looking to dedicate just 1 hour per month, that's all we're asking is 1 hour for you to work with early career software apprentices and provide them some additional guidance. We're hoping it will build a career-long relationship where you'll be able to really provide value for others. So that's my pitch. That's my spiel for today. And then I'm going to jump right into the questions. I know I had a couple that came to me ahead of time. And for those of you that are joining, please feel free, drop some questions in the chat. That's how this kind of works. The better you are at surfacing questions, the easier it is for me, because then I can just answer the questions and I don't have to like think too much. There's no real format other than, like I said, those comments that I made at the top of the hour. I'll stay here as long as I can. I've got about an hour blocked off my schedule. So if we go an hour, I think that's fantastic. That would be a great opportunity for me to answer like everyone's questions, hopefully. So Abby, great question. What is in the fridge is my supply of limitless LaCroix. So this week I addressed 2 questions that I think were phenomenal questions for folks that might not be sort of familiar with what it's like to be inside of a shop. And the first is, someone asked, what is a snack wall? I was like, oh, that's an easy one. A snack wall is something like what you see up here. This is a snack wall. And then at a lot of shops, a nice perk is you get a limitless supply of LaCroix. So that's what we got in the fridge. We got some LaCroix. I got a little protein coffee shakes. You can't see those. Those are a little below the line where the camera is. But I'm not supposed to be drinking caffeine right now, so I'm trying to stay away from those. I'm just sticking with the LaCroix. So what questions do you folks have? And I got some that came through, so I'll pull up the ones that were pre-sent. I'll also check my email, so if you want to send something to me via email, you can submit those. Mike@sdcs.io is my email. Glad to take a look at a resume. If someone wants to send me a resume for a review, happy to do that as well. But I'm not seeing any questions there yet. I do have some questions that came in over the course of the week, so I can pull those. But what questions do you have? For those of you that are out there, interwebs, what questions do you have about landing that first job? This is the part that's the least exciting. If you don't have a big stream of questions coming in, I'll just rip through the ones that are written, and then it's like, peace out. But the way that you gain the most like from this experience, for those of you that are actually looking, is ask questions, because I've helped lots and lots of people, not only folks that have gone through when I was previously teaching at a boot camp, or the apprentices that we're now helping, but I've helped lots of people through the Looking for Work program that have gone to a bunch of other programs and have had just a variety of different circumstances that have caused them to have an inefficient job search process. And that's what it usually leads, like that's the frustration, where it usually boils over is folks are not super efficient, and then it takes much, much longer than if you just take the right tack and approach. And frankly, if you're early career, you probably don't have a big sample size of what it takes to like do a good strategic job search, to make sure you're interviewing well, make sure you're applying for jobs that are going to be within your wheelhouse, like all of those kinds of things. So okay, so to that point, a question I had ahead of time, one is, if a job asks for 3 years of experience, can I still apply? Yes, is the big answer to that. So I would always look at a job listing, any kind of job post, as a request or sort of like a wish list. So many employers understand that you're not going to possess all of the skills to be the perfect match for that job. But what they want you to understand is this is what the job entails, and this is where they think the best fit is. Then it's your job to assess whether or not you can meet sort of that requirements and or grow into that position over a short period of time. So if you feel like you meet 60% or so of the wish list that they've placed in the placement, I would say go for it. I'd say worst case scenario, they say no. Best case scenario, you tee up that the journey starts to kind of go with a phone screening and then maybe an interview, and you start working your way through the process. So I'd say make sure it's not a super stretch. So can you envision yourself working in that role? And if you feel like I would just be over my head, there'd be no way I'd feel comfortable, that's just a big stretch for my current skill set, and I think it would take me like 8 months to a year to be there, then I would say it's probably not a great fit. let's hold off, get some more experience, cut your teeth somewhere else, and then maybe go after that position when it makes more sense. So that was one question. We've had a couple more come through, so I'll hit those as well. So the other question that came through, let me just mark that one as answered. Oh, I've gotten lots of questions about the apprenticeship, so I'll just cover those really quickly because that's not the intent of this. So we have a software apprenticeship program. It's a registered program in the state of California. We basically teach the same basic stack we taught before as part of our code school, but now we pay folks to learn how to code. So we pay $18 an hour to start, then it goes to 19, then it goes to 20, and it is largely funded by us working on projects for really large clients. So that provides an opportunity for us to employ folks, give them a year of real good skill, and they might learn technology stacks or platforms like ServiceNow and be really good at implementing ServiceNow. And then we can have them go out into the ecosystem and transition into roles that, like, folks that implement ServiceNow. It could be like a Deloitte or KMG or Accenture, or local partners like Genus or New Rocket, right? Folks that would be qualified to work on some custom ServiceNow work. So the catch is the other question that they asked. What's the catch? There's none. We don't currently have a cohort that we're accepting applications for, but you can sign up on the interest list. And then once we do open another cohort, which we anticipate happening in the winter, then we will reach out and begin the candidate screening process. If you are accepted into the program, you basically become a professional software engineer the day you join. It's like the fast pass. And we're looking to help folks in the communities that are traditionally underrepresented. So we'd love it if you are Black, Latinx, a woman, LGBTQ, neurodiverse. We would love for you to apply for the program. That is really the intent, is to provide an opportunity for folks that are traditionally underrepresented. So let's answer some more questions. So there's LaCroix in the fridge. That was probably the most important question we've covered so far. So next question, what does it take to get into a FANG company as an entry-level developer? So let's start with FANG company, because I've literally had people at FANG companies say, what's a FANG company? I'm like, it's the company you work at. So when we say FANG, we're talking about Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, sort of the real big dominant tech ecosystem / tech giants in the world, right? So what it generally takes is a good degree of patience. If you are not a degree holding individual, so you didn't get a CS degree, the route's a little tougher. Typically, it means you might have to go through either an internship, apprenticeship opportunity directly with that organization, or have a year of experience under your belt. Now, that means if you graduated from a boot camp, it's not likely you'll be able to get a direct hire there, because they mainly focus on recruiting directly out of college campuses. But they do have, most of these companies have alternative routes. They're just very, very competitive, and it might be difficult for you to bridge that without a year of experience. Now, once you gain a year of experience, then it boils down to, can you think computationally? Are you capable of passing a technical interview that is a little bit more heavily computer science focused? Because many of the organizations are used to recruiting students that are coming with formal computer science degrees. They also do things at scale. So you'll need to make sure that you understand the fundamentals of computer science so that the code that you write will be scalable and will work under, an enormous load, right? You want to build efficient software systems and have a good degree of competency in that arena. So I like to tell people they're great to go after as entry-level software engineers. Like, getting into those organizations is amazing. And that's one of the areas that we focus in with our apprenticeship. But it may just take a little while and may take a year or so of experience. So that's the biggest thing I'd say. Like, how do you get in? Gain experience, work on a lot of passion projects, and be good at some of that algorithmic, some of the more heavily computer science-y type interview strategies. That will really, really be helpful. So The next question I have is, how long should you wait before you follow up with an initial resume submission? Okay. Hopefully, you've already reached out to somebody inside the company before you've even submitted your resume and application. So that's, got to take a step back and make sure that's number one. Get an internal champion before you submit an application for a job or you blindly send your resume. You want to make sure there's a soft landing inside of the organization and it doesn't end up going from the HR's desk, print it out, if you're lucky, and into the wastebasket. Instead, if you have someone on the engineering team that you've reached out to, they might be able to tap the shoulder of the HR person, or in a socially distant world, they may be able to send a Slack message and say, hey, my buddy is going to apply for this position. When she applies, can you please be on the lookout for her resume? And can we make sure she gets a phone screening, right? So that's super important, because if you haven't done that, all the follow-up isn't going to make a bit of difference. So if you have that, great. Then you apply or you submit your resume. I would follow up within 1 week, so 1 business week. So if you submit something on a Monday, give them some time to process it. Then starting the next week, you start your follow-up. You're going to reach out, and you're going to continue to reach out until they tell you to stop, go away, or they give you a job, right? So if they tell you, listen, you're not a good fit for us right now, you think you need a little bit more experience, that's a fantastic response. And then what you do is you kick it out for like a month. And in a month, you respond back and say, these are the passion projects that I've worked on in the last couple of months, just circling back to see if you are still looking for someone to fill this role. Here's what will happen. They'll be like, dang, she is persistent. We talked to her last month, we gave her a flat out no. She came back a month later saying she's worked on X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's enough to earn a conversation and have them bring you in for an interview or at least a phone screening. But you're going to stay on the folks' radar if you continue to persist and you continue to follow up. Now, if someone says this isn't the right fit for you, you need more experience, you're not going to be effective if you just send them another email in 4 days like, hey, you should really consider me because I'm worthy and I deserve it. That's not going to work. So this isn't about having someone try and take pity. Instead, it's about what can you gain from that and learn, okay, I need more experience. Great. Let me get heads down, work on some passion projects. And after a month, after I've built 3 or 4 more passion projects, come back and be in a position to say, hey, how's the search going? Have you been able to find someone to fill that role? I've done X, Y, and Z, tangible things to get better. I'd love to talk to you about how I could contribute to your team and maybe be the right fit for this role, right? So I've given you the language. Now there's no excuses. Just got to get in there and follow up. So the follow-up period depends on the results. If you get no feedback, then I would say wait 3 business days and then ask again. Just keep punting it out 3 or 4 business days and then following up until you get a response. When you get a response, you have to react based on the response. So hopefully that helps. What are some signs? Next question. What are some signs you should not take an entry-level job, aka red flags, things to avoid? So I would be cautious if you are taking on a role where there's too high of a ratio of new early career folks and not enough senior engineers to support the number of folks. That's a big red flag that I see sometimes in the space, especially when organizations are trying to kind of like abuse the supply of junior engineers. They might think, oh, I can get junior engineers on the cheap, or I can get them to come in under an internship and pay them below or nothing, below industry standard or nothing. And if you walk into a shop and they're like, yeah, we're hiring 2 or 3 junior engineers, the first question I would ask is, okay, what is the opportunity for mentorship and development? If I were to take a job, like, who would I get support from? And if they're like, well, we have a team and there's going to be 1 team lead, and we're going to have 3 entry-level, junior engineers, that's a red flag. It doesn't seem like they're providing enough support to make sure that you're going to get attention, you're going to be able to grow. So that would be one. The second would be just a mere sign that someone is saying, I want to do an internship and not being willing to pay for the work, right? And so that right away creates an inequity that I feel like you need to make sure you're sort of questioning if that's the right fit for you long term. Is it in a space where you feel comfortable sort of planting roots for at least a year, if not 2 years? If you're thinking about taking an offer on a job because you're, for lack of a better way of describing it, you're desperate and you just want to take something now, and your plan is to keep looking, don't do that. Not if it's a tech role, right? Unless you're willing to be super transparent and tell folks, listen, I'm willing to accept this job, but I'm looking for this. And if we can create this opportunity here, awesome. If we can't, then I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to keep getting better. And this is like not my long-term priority. I just would suggest that you're super transparent about that, because if your goal is, well, this is a mediocre or not good offer, and I'm just taking this as a placeholder until I can get another offer, and I'm going to aggressively keep looking, not a great way to start, right? Once you make that commitment, if you're going to accept the offer, got to go all in, 100% all in. So there's a myriad of other ones. And so I would say go with your gut. If something feels a little like is off, then ask, like you can follow up with someone that's senior and be like, hey, this is what happened, or this is what I'm seeing, or this is an offer letter. This kind of looks strange. What are your thoughts? Because you may not have a big enough sample size, right? So those are some of the factors that I would look into. Anything that seems fishy in terms of the ratio of support, anything that you're not 100% committed to, that's your red flag. If you're not committed to it, then keep looking. The opportunities are out there. How much time do you think should be spent prepping specifically for technical interviews versus just coding on smaller passion projects? Good question. So I usually say that there's a ratio that you should utilize when you're sort of treating the process like it's a job. So the process of a job search should be like a job. So you should designate and basically set up some blocks of time and sort of stick to that process so that you don't go too deep into the rabbit hole of researching companies, or too deep into code challenges and code wars, or any of those like places that you can do code tests and practicing for interviews. And I'd say spend 20% of your time, really important, learning something new. So you should be like a sponge, learning how to learn, getting better at learning new technology, especially when you're early on. Then I would say 20% of your time reaching out and doing the actual process of researching, reaching out to new companies, and putting yourself out there. So I think super important. Then I'd say 20% of your time should be spent following up, because as we said before, you're going to have a couple days and you're going to start following up with folks. And then 40% of your time should be, and that's like a big chunk of your time, coding and working on passion projects. So if you do that ratio where it's kind of like between coding every day and learning something new, that's like 60% of your time. And then it's reaching out and following up. That's the other 40. I think you're in good shape. So 60% learning, working on like hands on the keyboard, and 40% would be like activities that are actively searching, reaching out, or following up. Half of that time that you're spending in the search mode should be the follow-up. It's the part I know is the most painful, because you're like, how do I come up with a creative way of saying, hey, I'm over here? And the easy way is rely on the other part. Rely on the projects that you're working on. You say, hey, check out my GitHub. I just posted X, Y, or Z. Hey, last week I learned X, Y, and Z. Last week I had a challenge. I got stuck. This is what I learned from that experience. Hey, I'm super excited. I'm giving a talk at a meetup tonight. You should definitely check it out. You got to be thinking, okay, what can I be doing that I can then repurpose in my reach outs and my follow-ups? So hopefully that helps. Next question. When you are in an interview, what are good key indicators of company culture? That's the first part. And then the second part is, what kind of questions can you ask to learn more about the company environment? All right. Best question ever. These are actually like pretty easy to execute. Is, do you like working here? Because if you ask someone, do you like working here? And their response is like not a super solid, yes, this place like is the best place ever. That's your red flag. There's your red flag, right? You should be able to like look into their soul and figure out, do they really like working there, or did they not like working there? So don't be embarrassed. Ask that question and see. can you see that like one of the people on the panel looks like they're like in a hostage situation and they're not saying anything? That's your sign, like maybe this isn't the place. So asking that question, I think, will be like super revealing. Other ways that you can ask about that in, I think, a positive, constructive way, especially if you are a individual that is diverse, is, not a white cisgendered male, age 25 to 35, is to ask like, hey, do you do anything special to like get people on board and understand more about like what your company culture is, your values, etc.? Can you share what are your company values? What are the strengths of the employees, not the company, but the employees that work inside of the organization, right? One of the best ones, love WD-40, Gary Ridge, awesome guy. Talks a lot about the culture of WD-40 and how that is the most important thing. It's not the chemical, it's not the formula that keeps things from squeaking, right? It's the value that the employees bring and the fact that they can't be replaced. No one can just like steal the formula and then suddenly put WD-40 out of business. It's the people that work there that make the difference. So asking those kinds of questions, like, how important is it for your company to adhere to those values? How do you actually execute on those values? What are you doing differently, right? Be all about it. Ask them, what are you doing differently in the wake of what we're seeing out in the street right now? How is that impacting your business? How's that changing things for how you go about business? And so then you have to gauge, do they have legitimate responses, or are they like offended by that? Because if they're offended, might not be good. Get some new tools now. Glassdoor has got a new tool about diversity inclusion, so that could give you a heads up before you even show up on the interview. If you're dealing with an organization that is ready and able to, has the capacity to support diverse candidates, are they an inclusive environment? Is there some equity there? Those are important, in my opinion. Folks that look like me, those are important factors. So yeah, just be straight up, just be authentic, just ask. Can I bring my full self to work every day? Or do I got a code switch? What's it like? You'd be surprised how when you're transparent and you show a little vulnerability, how the conversation can shift from one of you trying to explore to one of them trying to convince you this is where you belong, right? And you belong here because of X, Y, and Z. And these are the values that we think are important. So awesome question, Lexus. When do I sleep? I sleep. Trust me, I do. I try and go to bed early. Last night I was up super late. I was up until like, I want to say 11, maybe 11:30. That's super late. You got to remember, I'm old. I'm 45 now. So I'm not the young DJ that's up all night drinking caguamas, right? And just partying, right? That DJ lifestyle, that's done. So I do get up early though. I'm up at 5 a.m. And for those of you that are searching for a job, biggest thing you can do is get up early before it's distracting, before it's hot, and put in like by 12 o'clock, I'm on halftime. I've already been working for 7 hours, right? That's halftime for me. So if you are willing to put more effort in than the other people around you, you will get better faster and you will get opportunities that other folks are just not going to have, because just go after it. So I sleep a reasonable amount of time. Try and get about 7 hours, 8 hours of sleep. So question from Freddie. What related tech skills make you stick out as a candidate? I think it's market specific. And so depending on the market you're in San Diego, the skills that stand out for most employers are going to be non-technical first. So your ability to communicate technically effectively, your ability to problem solve, your ability to work together with other people, be a good team member, right? Just your core essential skills as an employee, super valuable to companies. And trust me, if you can just explain that and have a capacity to demonstrate that you're a good employee, that actually does make you stick out as a good candidate. So be able to, and don't say, oh, those aren't important. Being able to demonstrate that you have a pattern of coming in, being professional, making others around you better, even when you're not in the leadership role, you have informal leadership, awesome stuff. Then on the technical side, the stacks from city to city might vary. In San Diego, JavaScript, super popular. Python's becoming more popular. SQL, always popular. And then Java or C Sharp. So know that in your environment. Know in the city that you're in, the region that you're in, what are the skills that are in demand. There's lots of reports that are usually put out. Most cities have like a regional economic development organization that puts out reports. So go through it. Make sure you're not just addressing what you're seeing on like Indeed, but you're actually having conversations with senior engineers and asking them, hey, what's the deal with, I hear about cybersecurity. I hear about data science. Are those good fields to get into? Because they're going to probably tell you it may not be what you think, right? Just because someone's selling a course on something doesn't mean that lots of employers are hiring early career folks, right? That's the key. Think about it. If I'm a company that manages a lot of data, am I going to hire a junior data scientist? Probably not. I might hire a data engineer to help come in and clean data and help prepare for reports. And data engineering, lots of opportunity. Data science, not as much. So from the outsider's perspective, it's hard to know because you don't have as much of a sample size. So those are some of the ways you can get a sample size. Talking to senior engineers inside of shops and asking them, what does their team need? What are the ways that they see opportunities for junior folks? And then looking at the reports and looking at the hard data for your local community, not like the BLS, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that's in Washington, D.C., but your local regional economic development corporations. So there's one in pretty much every major city. Abby said, literally happened to me. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm glad it was a positive thing, I hope. Do I recommend finding temp or short-term jobs offering to gain experience to be able to land more desirable jobs? If so, do you have any tips on finding one? Sure. So a lot of folks like going out for contracts and doing contracting for a little bit. It tends to be a little bit harder as a junior engineer because when you're contracting, you're usually looking for people with very specific skill sets. So that might be a hard space to get into, but it's the most fair way if you really do want short-term projects and you want to be working on a diversity of things, to be very transparent. The other way you could do that is you could freelance. I'm not a huge fan of freelancing because for new folks, it's really hard. You have to wear a lot of hats. That includes you got to go out and you've got to sell folks. You have to be able to actually complete the projects. Then you got to be able to maintain them over time. And doing all that as an individual takes a lot of work. It's way harder than finding a job. Way harder. So I'd say short term, there's also in many places the ability to work part-time. So maybe it's both. Maybe it's both short term and part-time, or one or the other, but that is not the norm. So you have to ask. There may be not as many opportunities that are posted that are short-term or part-time. Instead, these are ones where you can ask around and you can say, hey, would you be willing to have someone come in and work 10 hours in the middle of your backlog? I'm looking for an opportunity. So that could be helpful. Agencies often have overflow work. So you might be able to go to your local design shops, your agencies that do digital marketing. They put up websites and usually have lots of volume, especially in the fall when we start getting into like e-commerce and all these like micro sales sites and landing pages and emails. Those are great spots for you to get some of that overflow work and get some experience. And they might just pay you as an hourly contractor. And you could basically pick up some freelance work without it being like something you're actually actively trying to go out and sell like on a regular basis. You're not trying to build a shop, but instead you pick one place and say, hey, I'd love to have work if you've got extra overflow work, and I'll charge you a super reasonable rate. Or if I can come in and fly a desk, or in this case, COVID, if I can come in and just join your team, work part-time, I love it. So that's tough though, because it's out of the norm. Usually people want someone to commit full-time. I think it's not the path to get a desirable opportunity, I guess would be my first thoughts on that. Thanks, Gabriel. Appreciate that you find this useful. Thank you, Lexius, again for giving me credit for being truthful. I try and always be straightforward. Sam asks, what are some creative strategies to negotiate an offer once received? Okay, creative. I'd have to ponder that. So I feel like once they've given an offer, Then you have to decide how aggressive you want to be. I think um, the point that you want to make when you're negotiating a salary is that what you're asking for is fair and reasonable, and be able to substantiate it with your experience. And so that's where you have the wiggle room, right? You have the wiggle room by saying, well, unless you have a counter offer. If you have a counter offer, you can say, listen, I have another offer. This is where I'd really like to be at with your organization and where I'd be comfortable accepting an offer. So is there any way you could come up to X, right? You don't have to necessarily say what the other offer is, whether it's higher or lower, doesn't matter. But you can say, look, this is where I'd really like to be at. Is it possible for us to get to here? Then just ask, because they'll just tell you no initially. Then you could go back and you'd be like, well, okay, if you can't do that, here are some skills that I think I bring to the table that you may not have already, I have not shared with you. And so because I'm sharing this new information with you, I feel like that should be, worth at least X. And then you throw another number out there, right? So you want to frame it in such a way that clearly there has been a misunderstanding about the things that you bring to the table without being blameful, and just say, hey, I realize I haven't shared with you that I also feel like I could bring X, Y, and Z, and this is why I add more value to your organization. Or the other thing is you can play on the scarcity. I really feel like this is a great opportunity, and I don't want to miss out on the chance to work your organization because we're only off by X amount. Would we be able to meet here? Right? And if worst case scenario, they're just going to say no. Right? Then you have to decide, do you want to accept the offer or not? Now, if they're not a great organization, they might rescind the offer. That's a good sign for you to know now that you're dealing with folks that you don't want to be working for if they're rescinding offers, because you make a reasonable attempt at negotiating for slightly higher amounts. If it's way off, if like they're asking for something that's ridiculous, again, bad sign. I would probably walk away and wouldn't even try to negotiate with them. So hopefully that gives you at least a couple tools that you might be able to utilize. So Abby, resume pulled to the top by an internal champion. Oh yeah, I know about that. So yeah, really important, super critical. It can literally be the difference between your resume going in the wastebasket, you being given the wrong code test, right? For like wrong skill, wrong job rec, to right code test, right job rec, and getting an interview and getting an opportunity to come in and talk about your skill set. So having that internal champion is like the number one thing. I was on a panel just this past week, and it was a bunch of recruiters, and I was the only non-recruiter. And I basically said, and they asked what's the best way to to get, I think it was to get in or get through to an HR person. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Go around, right? HR is a waste of time. And all three of the other people were like, I know, don't tell anybody, but yeah, don't tell anybody I said this, but you need to go around. Because if you are just waiting for us to make a decision, it's very different than when the business unit or a team member or a hiring manager, or in some cases the CEO, goes to the HR person and says, hey, this person, I know them. Can you please take a look at them? Here's your, you're going to get a much better treatment if you can have an internal champion that just they know someone's on the, someone's watching this candidate. So they're going to give the red carpet, they're going to give the gold star treatment, because they want to make sure that the internal folks don't come back in a few weeks hey, how come we never talked to so-and-so? I thought I said that they were going to submit their application. And you'll have that occasionally, and the person be like, oh, I looked at their resume and it didn't. And then there's just nope, they're getting an interview. Let's get it scheduled. I want to talk to that person, right? So having those champions is a huge deal. It's the difference between your resume immediately being rejected and at least getting a phone screening in many cases. So questions are starting to slow down. That means that we're solving problems. I like that. So if you have additional questions, please feel free. The way that you get the questions to me is just drop them in the chat. So there's not a fancy system or a chat bot or something like that. Just drop questions in. I will read them and try and answer them. It's kind of the way I try and get back some value every week. We do this every Tuesday. So if you are on the grind, you're looking for a job, please be a regular. I'd love to hear, these are some challenges you're facing. This is something that was said or done. Should you do X, Y, or Z? And, bounce off whatever you have. I've hired lots of software engineers. I've helped lots of software engineers get hired. And so I'm happy to share all of those experiences and tell you, this is what I find works. This is what I find is not effective. It's funny. I looked at a post last night. I'm full of stories today, but questions aren't coming. So while there's no questions, so throw the questions in the chat box. Last night, I saw a post from Gary Vee, and I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. Gary was talking about something like, don't be a content creator, be a content curator, just record everything and document everything. Just be a documentarian, and then you'll have plenty of content for you to post. You don't have to even think about it. You just have stuff that you just said that's on tape that you can just put out there. Thanks, Gary, but we don't all have a crew of film people that follow us around all day. I do some interesting things, but I don't have a film crew. And then 100 people that work in a shop chopping up videos. I try, but that said, the thing I took away from it was that Gary was 1,000% right. But if you looked at the video, it was 10,000 views of the video. And then he said in the video, the call to action was throw an affirmative message in the comments if this is something you're going to do. You're committed to doing this. Become a documentarian. Don't worry about creating content. Just record the content you're already doing. And I was just like, okay. 10,000 people watched the video. 85 of them left a comment. Now, part of that is strategy, right? Gary wants people leaving comments because the comments make the video go further in the network reach. But it's also super interesting that 99% of people will watch the video and then not take action. All you've got to do, someone asked earlier, how do you distinguish yourself from other people? All you got to do is execute. Gave lots of keys, lots of things that you could be doing. And I'm no Gary Vee, but what I can tell you is if you just apply the strategies that I'm talking about on Tuesdays, get your questions answered and actually execute from Tuesday to Tuesday, you will get a job, and you'll get a job way faster than if you do things that are inefficient and that aren't working well in the system that I've seen lots and lots of people doing. And so I know it's super frustrating as a junior engineer, but you only have to be a junior engineer, and you only have to land that job that first time and then be a decent human being. And if you do, you won't get fired, even if you make mistakes. As long as you're good and you're nice and you learn from your experiences, you will get more runway, and then you will never have to worry about employment ever again, because there's plenty of software engineering roles out there. The more experience you have, the more you qualify for. So put the work in. That means coding every day. That means 40% of your time should be spent coding. And then ask yourself, if you're putting 10 hours in, you're working really hard at the job search. Are you coding for 4 hours every day? If you're not, better put that on a timer. Better get that the Pomodoro game going and get it tracked, and make sure you're spending that much time every day coding. Because if you're not, you are not working efficiently. You're not working smart. You're working probably way harder than you need to, and you're not getting the results. Because you're getting the results, you wouldn't be watching this video. So do the work. Just put the right effort into the right places, and I guarantee you, you'll be successful. And 99% of folks won't. So it's that simple. Any other questions before we wrap? I feel like the donut rule, also called the bagel rule, also called that 99 rule I just talked about, is the golden rule. If you just do the work and have faith that the process works, you're going to be fine. If you don't, you're going to struggle. It's brutal. I see it all the time. It is brutal. But I'm here to tell you, the opportunities are there. I'm talking to employers every day, and they're like, I need good people. They don't even have to be the best. They just got to be good people, and I'll hire them. I can teach anybody HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You need people to show up to work on time. That's not going to get you the job. Just being able to say, hey, I'll show up. Can you teach me software? That won't work. But push comes to shove, that's the real thing they're looking for. So I don't see any more questions coming through. We'll make one more pass my email, make sure that we didn't miss anything there. And then we are going to wrap. Oh, I don't see anything. I see lots of junk and spam. I hate that. But I'm so scared I'll miss stuff, so I try not to just anything that says, click here so you can get a deal. I'm like, click, want that deal. So now I get all this spam, but I don't see any other questions. So we're going to wrap. We'll do this every week until every human that wants a job gets a job. Well, incoming question. I like that. I got the heads up. All right, Edward. Got to type fast. No, go ahead. Take your time. So there is a question coming. I don't get to see any typing or anything, so it's hard for me to know if the question is going to be 1 or 2 sentences or really long. So I think I need some Jeopardy music. Would that be helpful? Something that entertain while we have these little down times. So if you guys got suggestions on, or girls have suggestions on how we go about filling these little spots in the program, I'm all ears. Here we go. Here it is. All right. Hey, Mike, what questions do you ask in an interview to find out what a company does? If a company does pairing or mob programming? That's an easy one. Ask them. Hey, do you have any opportunities to do pair programming or mob programming? Otherwise now known as ensemble programming. I have heard that now. So pick that turn up. So I would just ask them. In fact, you could ask them ahead of time. And what questions do I ask in an interview to find out? Yeah, it's just that question. And if a company does it, they usually are super bragging about it, right? So in San Diego, you got Hunter Industries, you got Zito. That's really the only ones I know of. So I think there are a couple other ones. I just don't know the names of those organizations. But they'll tell you, and they'll be like, just so you know. Oh, I do know that. Soshi. So Soshi does mob programming as well. So in San Diego, they become known. So it's not likely that it wouldn't have already come up, but you can ask. And then for sure, you can say, hey, you do formal pair programming? Is that a thing here? How does that work? Same thing, shops that do that will usually share that ahead of time, and they'll kind of tell you. And it's kind of one of those things about that shop. There's a lot more folks that do pair programming than mob, but mob is so much better. So legit. So that's a good question. I like that one. Mobbing is fun. And it works. Any other questions? Okay, going once. Going twice. All right, we're going to end this broadcast. I will see you all folks next week if you don't get a job between now and next week. So, another question. And we keep going into the bonus round. Is mob programming in a meetup good into understanding coding programming? If you have any meetups you recommend. Okay, so the question is mob programming in a meetup a good in? So maybe I think the question is, are there mob programming meetups? I'm not sure. I don't know of any here in San Diego. I know there are some folks that have a podcast that I respect the individuals. So it's called Mob Mentality. And I think that's a good spot to check out. We do have some heavy hitters in San Diego, like Woody Zool is here in San Diego. So occasionally he'll do these very impromptu sessions online where if you follow him, you might get a little notice that says, hey, I'm going to do a mob programming session. And if anybody would like to join for an hour or two, it's going to happen in 3 hours. And so if you just follow Woody Zool, there could be some opportunities for you to just try it out, see how it feels. I also know that there are lots of groups across the country, and if you look for mob programming or agile, a lot of times they closely sort of align. And mob mentality. Sure, see if I can find it. Just so you know, I'm going to use Google. So let's Google it. But I can tell you if it's the same person. Mob Mentality Podcast. There you go. So the Mob Mentality Show is on Google Podcasts. So this is probably the easiest link for me to share. I'll throw it in here. Hopefully this will show up across all the different channels. But yeah, the folks that run this, Chris Lucian, he's like a super, like, these are like the originators of mob programming. So you're getting it right from the horse's mouth if you get a conversation going with either Chris Lucian or Austin or Woody Zuhl, right? Ben Zuhl Smith, like, these folks are phenomenal. So if you have an opportunity, I would engage with any of their content. They're super sharp folks. If your question, so part of it, I think you said, is a good entry point to understanding coding and programming. It's a good learning tool. It definitely is. So we have utilized mob programming as part of our code school in the past, as well as part of our apprenticeship program moving forward. We really like to have folks working in at least a 3-person mob so that you are getting a chance to see the roles that you may not specifically be focused on. Like, you're getting to see the QA process, you're getting to see back end, front end. And even though that may not be the specific skill set that you're training for, you get a good sense of what it takes to craft good software when you're working inside of that sort of ensemble, with the idea being that you have all of the people at that computer that have the skills necessary to build out whatever that feature is. So I definitely think it's a great way to learn. And understanding, I could go on forever about that word. Understanding is a tough one to get to. Learning is a better word to use because it's a continuum. The goal is not for you to immediately say, aha. Instead, it's, okay, I got that to work, and I think I can reproduce the results now, and it's opened up a new path for me to be able to, like, move forward. I think a lot of early career folks are too focused on the, like, concept of understanding. I think it's better to be able to do and execute versus being able to, like, understand. Like, what does that mean, right? Can you list 3 ways of doing something? Can you explain how something works? It's a little bit more valuable than just a generic term, understand. So, yeah, awesome. So Chris Lucian, it looks like that's where his Twitter is. Great guy. I think he's up at Hunter right now, Hunter Industries, which again is like the birthplace. It's the birthplace of mob programming. Any other questions? I'll hang out for just another minute or two so we can give some time for those questions to come through. And then if not, I'm going to check out for the day. We will do this again next week. So more than happy, if this time is working for folks, keep this going at this same time. We were doing it earlier, but this time seems to pick up for more people. So happy to keep doing it at this time. All right. That's going to be it for today then. Again, enjoy the rest of the week, and I will see you all next week. Peace.